We all know that supporting research is a big reason why so many of us are here, out there fundraising and making our voices heard. From cycling hundreds and hundreds of miles to bringing new people into our Golden Circle giving program, to gathering friends and family together at Walk MS events around the country. All of these remarkable efforts so that we can raise money to fund MS research. Last year alone, the Society invested $40 million to fund 325 research projects around the world. And at this conference last year, we announced a 5-year research fundraising effort to raise $250 million. And beginning this spring, hundreds and hundreds of people from across the country became MS research champions for our Now campaign. Together, we've committed to stop, restore, and end MS forever. In short, we will leave no opportunity wasted to achieve our ambitious goals. And now, I have the honor of introducing someone who has the monumental responsibility of guiding the Society's research mission and its resources. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tim Coetzee, Chief Research Officer of the National MS Society. Thank you, Tim.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thanks to all of you who are fueling the MS movement and continually accelerating the pace of MS research. You know, everybody in this room is on an MS journey. For some, it began with a diagnosis. For others, it began when a loved one was diagnosed with MS. Others of you started the journey by volunteering or becoming a staff member at the Society. And then there are the scientists and physicians in this room who've committed themselves to finding the solutions to MS. My journey began almost 20 years ago with a fellowship at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to study myelin. Go Tar Heels! As I've reflected on this journey since becoming your Chief Research Officer, I've been struck by how much has changed in MS over those 2 decades. Think about this. 20 years ago, diagnosing MS was a challenge. People lived with the symptoms for years without knowing what they were attributed to or what they could do about them. Today, neurologists have tools such as MRIs and specific criteria to diagnose MS more efficiently and effectively. 20 years ago, we had no treatment that could modify the course of the disease in anybody with MS. Today, we have not 1 or 2 treatments. We have 8 disease-modifying therapies, including one of them that can be taken orally. We've been able to accomplish a lot for a lot of people, but not for everyone, and so we need to do more for more people, and we need to do it faster. You know, our potential is enormous. Recent discoveries are giving us a roadmap to change the course of what it means to live with MS, easing the fear and uncertainty of hearing these words, "You have MS." To seize this pivotal moment, we need to do 3 things. We need to attract the best and brightest minds focused on MS research and care. We need a comprehensive research strategy to stop disease progression, restore function, and end MS forever. We won't just tackle one aspect, we're going to tackle it all. And finally, we need the teamwork to make this happen. You know, I believe we can succeed because of how far we've come in MS research. MS is a complex disease, we know that, but now the field is working together to address those complexities head on. There are more research collaborations underway today than ever before, and not just here in the United States, but around the world. Scientists are working together in the areas of genetics, nerve repair, symptomatic treatments, progressive disease, pediatric MS, rehabilitation. The list is a long one, but joint efforts with leveraged funding are leading to shared learning and faster progress. More researchers than ever are committed to finding answers in MS. Today, you're going to meet some of the bright, talented young minds that are committing themselves to the heart of the MS movement, understanding MS, developing treatments, pushing the boundaries of science, and ultimately ending this disease for everyone forever. As I said, today, clinicians have 8 disease-modifying therapies to discuss with their patients. And we have a growing number of symptomatic treatments that are also available today, including one to improve walking. and we're not stopping there. Today, there are over 150 new potential treatments in the development pipeline. And then we have rehabilitation therapies that are emerging, real ways in which people living with MS can improve how they feel and live with the disease today. Just a few short years ago, exercise in MS was cautioned against, but today we have the scientific proof that this just isn't so. And what about access to treatment? Thanks to many advocates across the country, including many of you here in this room, policies are being developed to ensure access to therapies around the entire nation. We are at a pivotal moment in MS, but we can't rest. It is a fact that our involvement and funding played a key role in most of the therapies that are available today. It is a fact that a comprehensive approach to MS, pursuing all promising paths, has facilitated the development of entirely new areas of research, such as nerve repair and protection. The Society insisted that nerve repair be pursued. We brought funding and expertise together, and today it's a field with incredible promise for people with MS. We've invested in a funding model to bridge the gap between basic discovery research and clinical trials to develop new therapies. This model and the launch of Fast Forward is one that is delivering results. In 4 short years, more than $35 million we've acquired more than $35 million through commercial funding partnerships and the generous support of philanthropists across the country. In fact, I'd like to recognize the work of the Fast Forward Campaign Cabinet, which is completing their work together. The tireless efforts of these volunteers has helped secure more than $17 million to ensure that promising research discoveries don't languish on the shelf due to the lack of development funding. I'd like to recognize Christian and Lillian Haub, Wayman Johnson, Dave Power, Jamie Power, Emily Abbott, Sham Gitamal, Bill Gillespie, Tom Kroon, Jim Morris, John Pearson, Dan Ratner, and Dwight Risky. Let's celebrate these great volunteers. You know, collaboration is at the heart of what we do. We've built collaborations between organizations and scientists around the world to tackle some of the biggest challenges in understanding and treating MS. Teams working together to understand the role of genetics in MS. Teams working to understand what we can learn from children who develop MS. Teams tackling progressive MS and what makes it so different from other forms of the disease. And organizations working together across diseases, like our partners, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, the Arthritis Foundation, and others, to identify what can be leveraged and what we can do together. The research silos that used to slow progress are becoming a thing of the past. The Society will continue to drive MS research forward, no matter how challenging. Our research strategy says it all. We're not just here to uncover one piece of the puzzle or address one form of the disease. We know that the only approach to a world free of MS is a comprehensive one, and that includes stopping disease progression for everybody living with MS. It includes repairing the damage and restoring all of the lost function, not just some of it. It includes ending the disease for everyone, preventing future generations from hearing the words, "You have multiple sclerosis." But it's not just our commitment that's driving MS research. Each one of you shares a commitment to do whatever it takes to ensure that the resources and funding are there to make it all happen. And we're setting our sights even higher. As you've heard, between this year and the end of 2015, we are committed to completing a $250 million initiative to drive MS research. The Now or No Opportunity Wasted initiative is well underway, thanks to the efforts of everyone here today and across the country. This bold commitment will enable increased research funding following worthy projects and promising paths that can lead us to solutions for everyone affected by MS. Continued funding will make it possible for new ideas and concepts to be tested and to push the boundaries even further. You know, predicting the future is far from perfect, but I am confident that the momentum we've gained over the last 20 years will only accelerate as we move forward. I'm honored to be part of the teams that are leading us forward, teams of researchers collaborating worldwide, teams of organizations working together for shared solutions, teams of fundraisers, bikers, walkers, chefs, golfers, and artists, and teams of leaders, our trustees, volunteers, each of you that gives in so many ways. It takes each and every one of us to seize the opportunity to move forward faster than ever before, to bring solutions forward for everyone living with multiple sclerosis. Together, we can accomplish so much more, and together, we will achieve a world free of MS. And now, I'd like to introduce you to some of the young scientists leading the way and hear from them about what they anticipate for the future and what novel projects they are working on to stop, restore, and end MS. I'd like to invite Dr. Sergio Baronzini, Jesse Huizinga, Angela Hahn, and Tim West to join me up here on the stage. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
We've been talking about stopping, restoring, and ending MS, and now we want to hear from the four of you who are working to make these goals a reality. So first, I'm going to talk to Sergio for a minute. Let's start with you. You've been looking at both how we stop and end MS, so let's talk about that. One of the really exciting things you're working on is looking at biomarkers and what those might do to help us predict MS. So, first of all, what is a biomarker and why is it so important?
Well, thank you, Tim. It's great to be here. A biomarker is something that can be measured that can correlate with a particular outcome. And for example, an analogy with your car would be if you can measure the temperature of your car and you can see the speedometer of your car, you get a sense of how the engine is going. An analogy with an airplane would be the altimeter. It gives you a sense of how high the plane is flying. When we apply this to a human body, a biomarker is something that we can measure reliably and ideally in a reproducible and non-invasive way or minimally invasive way, so that it can inform us about how the disease is progressing or how can we intervene. In this sense, there are several biomarkers that have been developed for other conditions or diseases. For example, one can measure the amounts of blood sugar for diabetic patients. One can measure the tension of the blood in hypertension patients. And for MS, unfortunately, there's not been a biomarker yet that has been reliably developed and widely used, aside from MRI, which is a highly important measure that is indeed needed for diagnosis. But we're still in the need to develop biomarkers that can predict how disease progresses and whether an individual patient will respond or not to therapy.
All right, so it's a bit like a cholesterol test for MS.
Oh, exactly.
So I know you're doing a lot of work. If we visit your website, the Society's website, it talks about you're using something like bioinformatics. It's a long word. What is that?
So bioinformatics is a fancy word just to depict the use of computers to analyze biological data. There's been a real paradigm change in the way we do science today. When I was a student, a typical project will go something like this. We'll sit with my advisor, discuss the hypothesis, lay out an analytical plan. Then I'll spend weeks or months in the bench. And at the end, I'll collect all the data and get my calculator and crunch the numbers. And in 10 minutes, I will get my summaries. Today, technology allows us to look at, let's say, in our case, DNA samples of individuals and collect millions, literally millions of data points overnight. So that really forces us to use computers to analyze this data, to develop new statistical methods that allow us to make patterns that we can understand and correlate with a particular disease process.
So if that's what you were doing in the winter months, what were you doing in the summer months? No, we won't go there. So what does this information mean for people who live with MS?
Well, I think it's really important. Part of our research, which focuses on genetics, and so genetics has taught us that each individual is different, and that the susceptibility factors might be different in different individuals. What that means also is that the disease progression and the response to therapy, it might be individual. And what we're trying to do is to understand this main two aspects of the disease and pretty much do what Google or Amazon or Netflix do with all the data that they collect, is try to apply smart statistical methods to train a computer program with lots and lots of data and try to predict what the future will be for that particular individual. Pretty much like in Netflix, if you like this movie, you may like this other movie. Well, if this 1,000 patients are good responders to this particular therapy and they have this gene variance or this gene activity profile, which we can measure, then we can infer, hopefully, what would be their response and their disease progression profile. So in the next few years, I think this is going to become a real mainstream in not only in MS, but in other diseases as well. And we're really excited about this opportunity.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. I should point out that Sergio is also the recipient of one of the Society's Harry Weaver Neuroscience Scholar Awards, which is one of our most prestigious 5-year grants for young faculty. Harry Weaver was the former Vice President for Research for the National MS Society in the late 70s, and so this award was given in his honor. So now let's move from biomarkers to restoring and giving people back some of what was lost. Thank you.
Nice job, Sergio. Nice job.
Terrific. So lab research, like the type that Sergio does, is critical, but it doesn't stand alone. That's why it's really exciting for me to introduce you to somebody who's working on rehabilitation research, research that goes directly with people living with MS. Dr. Jessie Huizinga is focusing on movement and mobility. So Jessie, talk to us a little bit about your research.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. So my research is quite a bit different than a lot of the research you might see when you come to the poster session this afternoon, because I don't do bench research like Sergio. I actually work with people. So when I do experiments, people come into the lab because the goal of my research is to understand how different diseases affect how people move. And so I do that in a couple different ways. First, I try to understand sensory motor control, which is basically how your brain and your body communicate in order to walk, in order to perform a balance task, for example. I also try to identify new measures that will help us to decide if mobility status has changed. So if your walking pattern has changed, we'd like to identify that as early as possible. And then the last thing I do is I try to identify, develop, and assess new rehabilitation protocols that can help people to maintain their current level of mobility or to improve if they have problems with their walking and with their balance.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying will really change people's lives. What would you hope that your research
Well, I kind of hope so. Yeah, that's the goal. So walking and balance problems are one of the most frequently reported complaints for persons who have MS. So the hope that I have is that my research will be able to impact people on a day-to-day basis by helping them to maintain their mobility and to improve if they do have problems with their walking and with their balance.
So this could really translate so that when somebody goes into a visit with, say, a physical therapist, that your research could lead to new techniques that the physical therapist would use with them?
That's a possibility. You know, the reason we try to understand sensory motor control is because we want to understand how that control pattern is impacted by the disease process of MS. So people with MS have to adapt, and we want to understand how they adapt so that we can suggest how rehabilitation approaches could be applied to help people to maintain their walking, maintain their function, and if they have problems, that we want to correct those.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And Jessie has one of our postdoctoral fellowships, so thank you for your good work. So we've heard one aspect of restoring. Restoring function means there are other things in terms of restoring function in MS research. So we've also asked one of our other fellows, Dr. Angela Hahn, to come here and talk to us about her work around restoring damage to the nervous system. Angela is a fellow at the University of California in San Francisco. So Angela, tell us a bit about your work.
Well, I do very basic research. So our goal is to just learn something. And the major topic in our lab is the oligodendrocyte, which, as many of you know, is the cell that creates the myelin in the central nervous system. And it's our belief that the more we know about the basic biology of how these cells actually myelinate, we can learn how to manipulate them maybe a little bit and get them to remyelinate. So the thing about an MS patient is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with your myelinating cells. So why can't we use the cells that are there to repair? So there's a lot of disease-modifying therapies, and we focus on the immunological aspects of MS. But our idea is, let's take the cells that are there and that are creating normal myelin and get them to make more, so that if you've lost function, you can regain it. And at the very basic level, it's lab science. But our ultimate goals are actually fairly huge.
So it sounds like you love myelin.
I love myelin. I love oligodendrocytes, actually. They're beautiful.
As a card-carrying myelin biologist, I think that's okay. So let's talk a bit more about your research. So it sounds like, one of the sort of next steps might be thinking about how you can take the cells that are already in the brain and actually promote natural remyelination from happening. Is that what you see happening with your work?
Well, a lot of the ideas about getting myelin to be repaired are about stem cells or getting progenitor cells to make this myelin. And my project actually looks at sort of a totally different aspect to it. There are cells that myelinate that are still there and haven't been destroyed by the disease. So I want to figure out if the cells that are still there can actually just make more myelin. So can we coax those cells to do it without having to do a stem cell therapy?
Great, terrific. Well, I know also that you have a personal connection to the disease. Can you share with your colleagues in the room your personal connection?
So I think my third year, actually maybe my second year in graduate school, I was actually diagnosed with MS, and I knew nothing about the disease. So I actually knew my neurologist quite well, and when he told me, I just immediately burst into tears and asked him if I was going to die. And he kind of laughed at me and said, "No, you'll be fine. We just need to start treatment." And so after that, I realized in learning about the disease how absolutely fascinating it is from the aspect of a scientist. So there are so many things we don't know. There are so many potentials, avenues to look at. And this interface of immunology and biology really, or neurobiology, sorry, really, it really makes for fascinating experiments and great data and great advances. And if there's any benefit to having MS, it's that I get to interact with other people who have it. And so I get to see when my experiments aren't working that there is in fact this ultimate goal. And that when I talk about my research, and even when I say, oh, my experiment today is bunk, it didn't work, people are still excited about it. And that really helps me to keep going.
Oh, well, thank you, Angela. Your work really is impressive, and we know that the personal experience is incredibly inspiring to people who live with MS. So thank you for everything that you're doing. So you've seen the range from the biomarker to rehab to the love of myelin. So let's expand our reach just a little bit more to MS research. MS starts with just an idea that can build and change people's lives. And just like everything we do, it's how we all work together. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce to you to Dr. Tim West. a neurologist who spends a majority of his time with patients. Now, many of you will recognize Tim from the New York Times magazine that you received in your registration pack. So if you look in the magazine, there's a special insert. And Tim is right there with his mom. This special educational supplement, which was funded by industry partners at no cost to the society, is a great example of the breadth of research that's going on around the society, just like you see here. Tim, thank you for being here today and sharing your personal story about why you're so committed to stopping MS. Could you tell us a bit about how your mom influenced your choice to go into MS?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I would like to, on behalf of both myself and my mother, thank the National MS Society and the industry sponsors who allowed us to tell our story. And I think that this story is not too terribly uncommon, especially in this room. And of course, her story is a great source of passion for me and has really had a huge part in me choosing the career that I have. In fact, the center that I currently work at was built on a similar story by a gentleman named Larry Ruvo, who watched his father go through Alzheimer's disease. And so he created this center in Las Vegas where this kind of research and care can take place. And as far as my mother and what made me go into MS, I mean, when I initially started medical school, if you've read the article, you kind of have seen the high points of the story, but I was going to be a pediatrician. That was absolutely my goal. And the summer before I started medical school, my mother's MS took a turn for the worse, and she ended up in a wheelchair. And it was at that time that I really started to think about her illness and what it would mean for her going forward. And so when I hit medical school, I wanted to just absorb any and all information I could about that particular disease and about the illness. And I actually took some time off to do research in the clinical world, basically clinical research at the UC San Francisco MS Center. And as part of that year, I had the opportunity to bring my mother up for an evaluation at this MS center. And she'd actually never been seen by an MS specialist before, despite having the disease for about 30 years. And she had this evaluation by Dr. Emmanuelle Bobant, actually, so I can tout her name here. And she, during the evaluation, had a thorough exam and talked about level of function and quality of life and how she was doing and depression and all these other things that can come along with MS. And then actually gave her a treatment plan, not only about the MS, but also about sort of symptoms that she was having, and then went further and just explained why these treatments were going to be used. And at the end of the visit, she came out, and we said goodbye to Dr. Bobant, and my mom just broke down in tears. And I was a little concerned, and she said, I just didn't know a doctor visit could be like that. And it really inspired me to want to be a physician because I could see what a great impact a dedicated and well-trained MS physician could have on the life of a person.
Well, thank you. So tell us a bit about how you spend your day.
Well, so in that vein, actually, I spend most of my days seeing MS patients and talking to them about the issues that they deal with. I spend about 70% of my time actually in clinic seeing patients who have MS. And then the other 30% of my time I spend conducting clinical research. I'm sort of new in my new department, so we're actually building a department at this point, but I spend a lot of my time in clinic with the patients, and as part of that I also help to teach med students and residents and other physicians about multiple sclerosis who rotate in and out of the clinic with me so that they can gain exposure on how to take care of patients who have MS.
Right. So when you moved to Las Vegas from San Francisco, there were no other MS experts in a city of that size. Tell us a bit about that and your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it might not surprise most of us that there are pockets of America that don't have specialty MS care and where MS patients are largely underserved, but I think it might be a little surprising to realize that a city of almost 2 million people would fall into that category. And so when the opportunity through the Cleveland Clinic came to go out into Las Vegas and actually create a center to take care of MS patients, I was very enthusiastic and sort of jumped at the chance because this was absolutely my goal from the beginning, to try and make an impact on people who weren't getting the care that they needed or not getting enough care. And so, coming out to Las Vegas has been very interesting because it has its own challenges. Sort of starting up a new program and trying to take care of MS patients is it's not something you can do all by yourself. And in the city, there's probably somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 MS patients. And first and foremost, there's no way I can take care of everybody by myself. So the first thing you got to do is you got to build a team. And so, we're looking for, we found a nurse who we just hired on, and also looking for people like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy even. Also, we need to reach out to local physicians that are already on the ground. The local neurologists have done, they're trying very hard to take care of these MS patients, but they're just sort of overwhelmed. There's such a large need there. And also people like urologists and ophthalmologists and even social workers and psychologists who might be able to help with some of the emotional aspects that can come along with this illness. So building that team has been very key. And then the other thing, a lot of what we try to do is, at this point, starting up a center, is to expand the capacity of the community to take care of MS patients. Because like I said, I can't do it alone. So an important part of that is education. Education to the patients, because knowledge is power. And then also education towards the medical students and the physicians. And in truth, I don't know if other MS patients have a similar story, but my mother was actually first diagnosed by her family practitioner. So a lot of times we focus on training neurologists, but I think the family practitioners and the internal medicine physicians who actually do the bulk of the frontline care in America, they also need education and training in how to recognize and to take care of patients who have MS. So that's been a large push of what we're trying to accomplish there in Las Vegas.
Well, thank you for bringing your talent to a community and really in need of MS expertise. Tim was a recipient of one of the Society's clinical fellowship programs, did his training at UCSF, and Dr. Wellbun is in fact the leader of one of our pediatric MS Centers of Excellence. I want to thank all of you for being here today. It's pretty exciting to think that we have more than 100 researchers with us here today, some of the best minds, just like you see up here today, working to stop and restore and end MS. And on top of that, there are thousands of other researchers working around the world. Virtually every hour of the day, somebody is working on MS in the world. And you've heard it right here from the front lines. So let's thank our panel. Thank you.
Good job, panel.
Thank you.
Good job,
Thank
panel.
you. Thank you. Let me hit this.
Wow. Thank you so much, all of you. Let's give another round of applause for the researchers who came up, as well as everyone that's in the room. So now it's my pleasure to bring up Eli Rubenstein, National Board Member and the Society's incoming National Board Chair for 2012. Eli?
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you this week. I've enjoyed meeting so many of you, and as someone whose father, sister, and uncle all lived with MS, you have my deep and personal gratitude for all you do. And now we have the opportunity to hear from Cyndi Zagieboylo, our new president and CEO. But before we hear from her, I want to take a moment to share why Cyndi is the right person to lead this organization at this moment in time. With more than 25 years of experience working at the Society, Cyndi knows this organization inside and out. Anyone who knows Cyndi will agree with me that she keeps people with MS at the center of everything she does. She is results-driven and a strategic thinker. Cyndi has been on the front lines from the start of her career, working with people with MS on program delivery and standing with our chapters to ensure local communities can make a difference. She's both visionary and a strong team leader who encourages collaboration and transparency in all that she does. Cyndi will continue to be on the front lines on another level as our new CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, Cyndi Zagieboylo.
Thank you, Eli, for that really very nice introduction. I am energized to serve as the CEO of this amazing organization. I'm also humbled by the responsibility. The magnitude of the task before us would feel staggering were it not for one thing: the connection between all of us in this room and the thousands of others who are partners in our quest to create a world free of MS. It is inspiring to be here this week with our scientists and clinicians attending the Teichson's Fellow Conference. Let me give you just one example of what can happen when we bring new talent to the MS cause. In 1992, one National MS Society postdoctoral fellow named Nathan Caron, working in Larry Steinman's lab at Stanford, was among the first to discover the potential of monoclonal antibodies in MS. The Stanford team used this discovery to successfully treat MS-like disease in mice. This work led directly to the development of Tysabri and opened the door for other new treatments. Today, we have 75 current fellows here with us in the room. And I wonder if those fellows would stand up. And what about past fellows? Stand up, the past fellows too. And how about their mentors? Bring up the mentors also. Look at that. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for what you do and what you're doing and how you're investing your careers with us and with people who have MS. But just imagine, the answer could be right here. Think of the possibilities. The next big breakthrough in MS knowledge may come from someone in this very room. And there are scientists and clinicians are here with us because of the generosity of one person who's also in the room, Mr. Donald Tykson. There he is. Thank you, Don. Thank you so much, Don. It's a very special contribution you've made. This morning, we saw the tiny ad Sylvia Lowry placed in the New York Times. Do you know how many people answered that ad? Some of you do, I know, but I'll tell you. It's 245 people answered that ad. And that was the beginning of the National MS Society. And do you know how many Americans have joined the MS movement today? We have more than 3 million. And MS activists in 85 countries are working together through the International Federation of MS Societies. And just 2 weeks ago, more than 7,000 scientists and clinicians whose careers are dedicated to MS gathered in Amsterdam to exchange ideas and learn about cutting-edge research and treatment. Still, we need more. We need more talent, intelligence, collaborative spirit, and perseverance to end multiple sclerosis. Have you ever wondered how people affected by MS during those early years of the society in the 1950s must have felt seeing the scientific rush to find a vaccine for polio? And then a vaccine was discovered, and the end of that disease was in sight. Those living with MS must have hoped and believed that the answer with MS was also just around the corner. But MS has turned out to be much more complex than they could have known. And to find the answers, as we have heard earlier in this session, multiple pathways must be pursued. Progress has at times seemed agonizingly slow, and yet we persist. We will be relentless until the job is done, always acutely aware that while the research goes on, there are millions of people living with the day-to-day challenges of MS, and that the National MS Society is an organization of people committed to addressing those challenges right now. How do we approach a really, really big challenge? What needs to happen when people are faced with a problem for which there is no obvious solution? Just about a year ago, the world watched, riveted, as 33 Chilean coal miners were pulled to safety after being trapped more than a half a mile underground for 70 days. How many of you remember where you were that day? This is one of those times when I just remember where I was. I remember exactly what I was doing all that day. We wept as families were reunited, and we cheered as the last man was brought to the surface. What was perhaps most striking about the rescue was how it looked so easy. It looked routine, like they had done it 100 times before, as one after another rode that capsule to safety. In fact, the rescue was unprecedented. It took 17 days to discover that the miners were alive. Nearly everyone had given up hope, but not topographer Masserina Valdez. Though it was looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack, she persisted after more than 30 probes failed to find the miners huddled at the very bottom of the mine. And then finally, going on a hunch to drill a little lower than the geologist suggested, there was a direct hit into the miner's cave. Of the discovery, Valdez said, it was like using a shotgun to hit a mosquito at 700 meters. It was 75% science, 25% miracle. And remarkably, unbelievably, all 33 men were alive. And we have read of the miners' amazing strength as they rationed food and tried to keep each other from total despair during those first dark days. It was their connections to each other that gave them the collective power to survive the most terrifying circumstances imaginable. But what happened next, as the president of Chile faced the daunting task of how to craft an unprecedented rescue, was amazing. And it happened because those in charge were willing to take help from wherever and whoever could offer it. And a fast, focused team was formed. The special drilling bit to get half a mile into the earth came from a company with 74 employees in the tiny town of Berlin, Pennsylvania. And another Pennsylvania company built a drilling rig. Contractors from Kansas and Colorado operated the machinery, and Zypher Technology of Maryland created special harnesses to monitor the miners' vital signs. The one-of-a-kind rescue capsule that was built by the Chilean Navy with consultation from NASA. And there were many others who concentrated on keeping the miners alive and healthy in the dark, humid, and oppressive deep underground cave. The 33 men needed power and light, food and water, and ways to address hygiene and special health issues. They needed to be connected to their loved ones and the outside world so that they could remain sane and hopeful. And they needed a routine and ways to pass the time while they waited and waited to be rescued. All of this had to be accomplished through a 4-inch wide, half-mile long opening. Imagine all the things that went through that opening. There's a lot that we can relate to in this story of success. This is a story of the power of connection, starting with the miners themselves and the loyal family members, 2,000 of them, who stood vigil by nearby in a makeshift camp. But they were not alone. From across the globe, people came forward, each offering what they could, from communication technology to antifungal socks, sunglasses, and folding camp beds. And from around the world, messages of love, support, and prayer poured in, lifting the spirits of miners, family members, and yes, the rescue team too. With such a compelling cause, people and corporations took action, donating their time, funds, and expertise. When the cause is compelling and people understand the urgency, there is no shortage of those who can and will help. And although there are plenty of people who assumed the situation was hopeless, there were enough who recognized that they could contribute toward a solution, and they took the initiative to do just that. The urgency was obvious. The challenge was gigantic. Everyone in this room knows something about the challenges of living with MS. We are here connecting with each other because we know and we care. We have a singular focus, a common purpose, and together we will destroy any barrier in our way. The problem is gigantic, and the urgency when you have MS or you love someone with MS is obvious. No one can solve this problem alone, and there are many kinds of expertise that we need. A most important job is to find those others who can help. We need to tell the story, describe the challenge. We need to listen to the ideas of those we attract, to welcome their talents and draw them like metal to a magnet to our movement. So we will seek partners from every walk of life, from every industry, from every corner of the world, because that's how gigantic our challenge is. Like the rescuers, we can't focus on one thing. We already know the mystery of MS will not be solved by pursuing one pathway. If it were easy, if it were obvious, it would have already been figured out. But like the Chilean rescue team, we need to invent solutions. We will explore every possible intriguing lead and seek new and creative approaches to solving the difficult problems that face us. And we will not for one moment forget that our efforts are all about those who live with the disease. All the drilling in the world would have been to no avail if the rescue team had not also been focusing on the well-being of the miners. In our movement, we have to focus both on research and on moving lives forward every day. 250,000 people connect with us and with each other on our Facebook page alone. And we have moved to the front lines to address the specific needs of those with progressive forms of MS who have for so long felt ignored. Perhaps the greatest factor of all in most successful endeavors is persistence. Winston Churchill said, "Never give up. Never, 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 never. We shall not fail or falter. We shall not weaken or tire." Even when faced with a task that at times must have seemed impossible, the Chilean rescuers did not falter, weaken, or tire. They did not give up. When the standard drill bits broke, they scoured the world for better ones. There was nothing that existed that would ensure safety for the half-mile journey each miner would have to take to the surface. So they invented and constructed something new, a capsule equipped with an oxygen supply and communication system. And finally, the leaders of the rescue understood that all of the offers of help had to be coordinated. Each aspect of the mission had to be planned and patiently managed. And the troubleshooting never seemed to end. Every day, some new challenge emerged and a solution invented on the spot. Through the ordeal and under the eye of international scrutiny, the operation was carried out with coordination and surgical precision. We are the leaders of the MS movement, and it is up to us to ignite the urgency, letting everyone know that there is a gigantic problem in this world called multiple sclerosis, and it is up to us to recruit the right talent and to coordinate and manage all aspects of our mission. We are the planners, the implementers, and yes, the troubleshooters too. And we have many tools at our disposal, but one thing we don't have is a crystal ball to know the future. Consequently, we have to have an organization that can persevere, that is cohesive, nimble, inclusive, inventive, and relevant. We are focused on the same results. We have our strategic response to guide us. Christopher Reeve said, "We live in a time where the words impossible and unsolvable are no longer part of the scientific community's vocabulary. Each day, we move closer to trials that will not just minimize the symptoms of a disease and injury, but eliminate them." Today, I ask each of us to eliminate the words impossible and unsolvable from our thoughts. Our goals are not just dreams. We believe. We will make them happen. We will not falter. We will not weaken. We will persevere. We will, together, achieve a world free of MS.
Thank you so much, Cyndi. I know I speak for everyone in the room and everyone impacted by MS when I say we couldn't have asked for a better leader to move us forward. And again, thank you to Dr. Coetzee and to our researchers for sharing just the tip of the iceberg in what's hot in MS research. And now, please take some time in our exhibit area located right outside this room. Go out there and visit with our terrific sponsors, thank them, and let them know how much you appreciate their support. You can also go shopping in the MS marketplace. People just like you, well, actually many of you, who have brought the wares they sell to raise money for MS. You can pick up your complimentary t-shirt there. We saw them earlier, and so there's one for everybody out there, so make sure you pick that up. The exhibit hall will be open until 4:30, and we also encourage you to go and meet the researchers participating in the Tyson Fellows meeting. They'll be sharing overviews of their research through what is called a research poster session, which means they'll be standing by actual posters that give a summary of their work. This is one of the coolest opportunities we have here in Dallas to hear from and meet these researchers and learn more about what's happening in MS research, research we've all helped make possible. Please make sure to visit the filmmakers room and the researchers when you're there, and they'll be there from 1:30 to 3:30. The room will also be open until 5:30 if you want to go in a little bit later. We're going to see everybody back here to celebrate dinner and celebrate our successes at the celebration dinner at 5 p.m. So make sure you come in early for the pre-session mingling and connecting and reconnecting with all the people that you know here in the room. Thank you.